All right, welcome to Ignite, Spark session number 5, Set Goals That Matter, with me, your host, Coach Ed Marill. All right, guys, so we're going to start here. Let me share my screen. Here's the PowerPoint. Okay, I'm going to have to skip that. Okay, today we're going to focus on how to cultivate your leads into seller opportunities. Give me a second here. There we go. Here's the secret to being a successful real estate agent. Oh, look at this. Perfect segue. There is no secret. Success leaves clues, so we know exactly what successful agents do every day. So if you're ever wondering, like, what am I supposed to be doing? This is a great place to turn to. This is telling you right here. These 13 items, this is what you should be doing every day. This is your business right here. This is all of it. That's everything. So every day, agents do 2 types of activities. They grow their business and they run their business. I'm not going to explain every bullet point on the slide because we do that every day. The goal of our time here is to model what successful agents do every day and show you how to do it. Today, these are the skills that we're going to be working on. Today, we're talking as far as growing your business. We're going to talk about lead generating for buyers and sellers. And then as far as running your business, we're going to talk about number 6, which is set goals. And number 8, attend training and get coaching. Ding, 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 ding. As you can imagine, that's a favorite one of mine. All right. Today we're going to be talking about setting a meaningful goal. We're going to complete a 4-in-1 with steps to move toward that goal. Hopefully you guys are already familiar with the 4-in-1. If you're working with me, I hope you should be. But if not, we're going to talk a little bit about that today. Today is going to be a fun day. Today we're going to cover setting goals, which is part of running your business. To do that, we're going to ask the big question: where do you want to go? What's your motivation? And last but certainly not least, how do you get there? Those are the things we're going to be covering in depth today. Today's learning module is called Set Goals That Matter. So what makes a goal matter? That's a question for you guys. What makes a goal that matters? Oh, we've got a small class today. So it's Yvette or a
motivation. Motivation.
Well, that's your motivation, right? What makes something motivating? What makes a goal motivating versus one that's not very motivating?
Something really important get to.
Important to get to. Important to who?
To me, the person that's setting the 4-1-1.
I love it. Yep. It's tied to something you care about. Meeting it will have a real effect on your life, right? This is not just make believe, and it's going to have a real impact on your life if you achieve these goals, right? And the other thing that's important is that it is achievable. So who here has heard of the one thing? Anybody?
Yeah. The one thing that matters to you.
There's in Keller Williams, we talk about the one thing, and it's referencing something in particular. Anybody know what I'm talking about?
The book, One Thing.
Yeah, way to go, Amal. Exactly right. The One Thing is a book by Gary Keller and Jay Papasan about how to structure your life to achieve your goals. We're going to be talking about a few of the principles from the One Thing today, but you should definitely check it out for yourself. Amal, you want to read the quote that's on the slide here?
Who we are and where we want to go to determine what we do and what we accomplish.
That's right. That's right, right? Who we are and where we want to go determines what we do and what we accomplish, right? So once we know where we want to go, that's going to inform us on what the plan is, on what we should be doing, and what accomplishing it is going to look like.
Mm-hmm.
Why is it, here's a question, a follow-up question for you guys. Why is it important to set goals?
To work towards it.
Yvette, sorry, go ahead, Yvette.
To keep track of where you are and to know, yeah, how far you've gotten.
That's a great, both great answers. Yeah, here's what they have to say about it. It's important to set goals because the opposite of this quote is also true. What you do and what you accomplish determines who you are and where you go. If your activities don't have a guiding goal, you'll likely be very busy and not have a lot to show for it. How many of us can relate to that, where we seem like we're really busy all day, but we don't have a lot to show for it, right? That can happen. The mission of Keller Williams is to build careers worth having, businesses worth owning, lives worth living, experiences worth giving, and legacies worth living. None of these things just happen. Setting goals that matter means doing work that matters. When our work matters, we tend to do more of it, and we do it well. Here's the next slide. Part of achieving goals is working hard. I think we can all agree on that. If you don't put in the time and effort, you won't get very far, right? Looking at this graph, what else is important to setting and meeting goals? Certainly working hard is part of it, but what's the other part?
I mean, it's nice, like I was saying, like to see where you are. So the little victories along the way are good to see that you're, moving towards your goal.
I guess think of it this way, right? If our big outcomes are way up here in the top right, and the small outcomes here on the lower right, right? So some of it is about how hard you're working, the time and effort, but some of it is where you end up is also going to be determined by going up and down. Anybody? You're thinking, okay, thinking big, you don't get big outcomes from thinking small. When we talk about thinking here, we're talking about thinking big when setting goals and thinking big on how to reach those goals. You have to ask, what are you doing? How do you do it? What are you doing it with? These answers can limit your outcome or they can propel you forward. The question you need to ask is, how big is your box, right? Because this box here, right, which is going to determine how far we get, that's our achievement box. If you're not thinking big, you're creating an artificial ceiling of achievement. There are only so many hours in the day. There's only so much any one person can do with those hours. They tell me to think of an example here, and I can think of, for example, when I moved from the East Coast to the West Coast, I was intimidated because, I thought, okay, I was a pretty big fish in a mid-tier market, but now I'm going to the LA, and I don't want to move to the West Side because that's where I used to live, and I know a lot of people there, but it's going to be super intimidating because, I'll be competing against Josh Flagg and Josh Altman and those guys. I'm going to be butting heads against them every day, and they're going to have a TV show, and I don't have a TV show. So how am I going to compete with that? And so we literally moved to a different part of town based on that fear. That is a limiting belief, and that totally determined where we moved. And that shouldn't have been the case. Ironically, I probably would have been just fine on the West Side. I probably would have gotten there faster because I already knew a ton of people. So, and I knew better. I've been doing real estate at a really high. I was a $10 million producer in a small town where that's a big deal. And I still thought small, right? So that's what can happen when we think small. Many new agents limit themselves right away. Maybe they don't call their sphere and just hope business will come their way. Maybe they aren't systematic about lead generation. Maybe they refuse to learn scripts, but not you guys. Maybe they refuse to learn scripts that would make their job easier. Most of those agents don't stay in the business because they treat it as a business, or they burn out because they aren't seeking a good return for their time and effort. Right? As a reminder, you guys are business owners, right? You don't get a W-2, you get a 1099. Okay, so now we're going to be working on this. This is fun. We're going to envision your big life. We're going to do an activity that will help you envision your big life. Once you have that vision in place, then you can set meaningful goals that will bring you closer to that life. Once you have the goals, we can talk about how to reach them. It all begins with your vision. Okay, so everyone's got their participant guide, right? So we're going to turn to page 3. Anybody not have page 3 of the participant guide?
Oh, I don't have it. Hold on.
So, Amal, it looks like, what did I have here? So Amal, you can just draw this, and it's just a circle with a dollar sign
Okay.
and 5 rectangles around it. Okay, back to the PowerPoint. Where's PowerPoint? There it is. All right, so once you have that, we're going to do an activity that will help you envision your big life. Once you have that vision in place, then you can set meaningful goals that will bring you closer to that life. Once you have the goals, we can talk about how to reach them, but it all begins with your vision, right? And by the way, that's something a coach can't give you. That's something you have to have. Okay, so you're at page 3. On each of these 5 rectangles, write a person or cause that you care about. They have some examples here like donate cat habitat, get through school debt free, pay off mortgage. What would you like to do for that person or cause? Repeat for each rectangle. So what do you want to do for that? Oh, I'm sorry. The first thing we do is put it on top of the box. The cause we care about goes on top of the box. The part inside the box is what do you want to do for that? What do you want to do for that person or cause? Repeat for each rectangle. For example, maybe you want to be able to care for your parents as they age, send your kids to school without debt, or pay for a vacation for you and your best friend. For a cause, perhaps you would like to be named supporter for your local animal shelter, or serve on the board of a charity you care about. Those are pretty awesome, by the way. You can be one of the people you care about. Perhaps your big life includes prioritizing your health so you have more time and energy to give, or paying off your student loans. There are no wrong answers.
So helping all my kids to pay their student loans.
I love it. That's wonderful, Amal. Absolutely. Now go back to each rectangle as you've gone through them, and I want you to put an estimate of how much each action would cost. And there's an example on the screen. So you've got the cause on top of the box. In the box, you've got what it is you're trying to do or accomplish for that cause or person. And then right underneath there, I want you to put what is a dollar sign attached to that. In the center circle, quantify what this big life requires financially. How much would these things cost? Now note that some parts of the big life that we're talking about here will likely require time as well as money. As business owners, you're likely going to need to budget your time in terms of money. You're going to need to budget time in terms of money as well. What would they need to make to be able to spend more? So what would you guys need to be able to make to spend more time doing the things that you love, right? Do you see what I'm saying? Maybe part of your goal is you want to spend more time with your kids. Now there's not a dollar sign attached to that at first glance, but maybe there is, because maybe what that means is that if you had a certain dollar amount, you could, for example, hire an assistant, which would take some stuff off your plate, which would mean more time for you to spend with your kids, right? So some of it, even if some of the things require time, as a business owner, your time is money, right? So to make some of these things happen, it may require money, not because you need to spend money on it, but because you need to make more money so that you can have the time, right? Because money does buy you time. So in this big exercise here, the rectangles, those represent your big life. That's where we want to go. That's the life we want to live, right? And the center goal, the center circle, that is your goal. That's what it's going to take. That's the goal to make your big life happen. Any ahas from doing that? Anybody want to share anything that came up from doing that?
No.
No? Okay, well, we'll move right along. Okay, well, now you have a vision and a goal. Let's take a look at what it means for you to achieve that goal through real estate, right? All right. The first thing you need to understand is how your commission works. Many new agents get the check for their first closing, pocket it all. Oh, it's a big amount, exciting amount of money, right? And then they get in trouble down the line. Let's talk about where the money goes and how much will actually be going to your goal. These numbers are very general and are meant only as an example. Actual amounts will vary, especially if you're on a team. First, if you're on the seller side of the transaction, half of the commission amount goes to the buyer's agent, right? If you're a listing agent, you're charging your sellers, typically in LA, it's about 5%, but you're not keeping all 5%. Right off the bat, 2.5% goes to the buyer's agent. The same is true if you're a buyer's agent paying a 50% split to the seller's agent. Once you have about half, about a third goes to the market center to cover your company dollar, franchise royalty, and fees. If you're in coaching, that's a bit more, but that's just for your first couple of deals. After you pay the market center, roughly another third goes back to into your business. This covers marketing, operating expenses, signs, your car, your phone, anything else you need to conduct and grow your business. Finally, you get your share with a caveat. Your take home includes your taxes. Put money away for your taxes religiously. You don't want to have a year's worth of work wiped out because you failed to plan. And that's pretty brutal. Any ahas on that, by the way? That's not the most fun slide to look at, is it? It's not. It's not. All right, let's get real here. So example, all right, so I've gone in here and put all the examples in. I should have put commas, but here we go. Our objective in this activity is to get real about tying your business to your goals. We're going to figure out, based on how much money you'll receive from a transaction, how many transactions you're going to need this year to meet your goals. Okay, so turn to this page in your participant guide. I think it's page 4 that you guys should be on, or perhaps 5 or 6. First, we're going to estimate the average sales price and average GCI in our market. As you experience selling more homes, you'll be able to estimate an average sales point and GCI that fits your transactions more accurately. In our market center, the average sales price of a home is $1.1 million. But that's not what I have on this slide, is it? I have $900,000. That's because when you're new, you're typically going to be a little less, you're not going to be quite at the average of the market center. In our market center, you have guys like Pete Bonacore and some other folks who are pulling in, $10 million listings, and those are going to offset. You're probably not going to, you may, and I don't want to put that limiting belief on you, but your average will statistically be more like 900,000. Now you may be above that. Now, if you can do more than that, I don't want to hold you back. If our average sale price is 900,000, why am I putting $18,000 down for the GCI? Because that's 2%. That's not even the 2.5%. Why am I doing that? Because oftentimes when you're new, you're going to get into situations and people they're going to put your feet to the fire. And You'll buckle a little bit because you're nervous and you want the sale, which is probably the right move to make. You're going to be put in all sorts of positions where people are going to try to really pressure you to lower your commission. Most of the time, you should probably hold firm, but occasionally you're going to find yourself lowering your commission a bit. So I put 2% in there. Hopefully you beat that, but at minimum, you should be pulling in 2%, which would mean our average commission being $18,000. Now take a look. So the market set in our market center, the company dollar is capped at 29,000. Typically, it's 30% capped at 29,000. If you're in coaching, it's $25,000 for your first 2 deals, and then 20% for ongoing past that. It's a pretty sweet deal for coaching. The franchise royalty, the amount that goes to Keller Williams International, is 6% capped at $3,000 annually. So you add those two together, the most you will pay out to Keller Williams Larchmont and to Keller Williams International is $32,000. Make sense? Now here's where it gets really interesting. So we're going to take all this and put it together. Your annual net income goal. Now I just put in here. Some of you guys may have $150,000 for your annual goal for 2021. This is kind of what that would look like for you on average. The company dollar and royalty. If you achieve $150,000 worth of GCI, or if you're pulling in 150, that means you're going to cap out, which means your company dollar and royalty cap is going to cap at 32,000. Your business expenses are going to run about roughly 48,000. And that includes coaching, by the way. You got to max out at 12,000 of coaching. It leaves you $36,000 more to cover everything else in your business. Some marketing, some signs, some everything else, right? So the total between those first three lines is 230,000, which is equivalent to your GCI. That is your total GCI for the year. Now, in E, we calculate, remember this was from before, this was the average GCI from each transaction. And we were saying back here, $900,000 deal, 2% commission. You should be pulling in at least $18,000 per deal. So if we enter that in and we divide the annual GCI by each GCI for each transaction, means to achieve $150,000, you're going to need to do about 12 transactions roughly. Now, to be honest with you, this graph that I put up here, this is a little bit on the liberal side. You're probably not going to spend $48,000 on business expenses, and so there you go. And you may very well likely get more than $18,000 per GCI on a deal. But this is a rough guess at how many transactions that if I were in your shoes, this is what I would be shooting for next year. This is my transactional model, my economic model for next year, if I were in your shoes. Can we move on? Anybody else? Anyone still writing anything down, or can we go? Okay. There's a place to put in these goals in Command, and I'll show you very briefly here. So here's Command. If you scroll down here to reports, this one down here looks like a little graph. Up here at the top, it says goals. And underneath goals, you can, here it says 2020 goals. You can do goal settings. And go through here. So we can do this for next year. It's already opened up for 2021. I haven't done mine yet. But all these numbers that we just talked about in the last 5 minutes, you can put all of them in here. And if you're using Command and you track all this stuff, this will help you track your numbers going forward. I do recommend doing this. For those of you in coaching, so let's talk a second here about, because we have a lot of different things that we're doing for tracking. You're probably wondering, like, wait a minute, I'm getting confused. We've got a 4-in-1, right? We're using the 4-in-1 tool. We have the KD&A tool that we use for tracking once a week, as you guys all know in coaching. Now we've got all these things in Command. And by the way, there's others too. There's the business planning clinic that Joey and I are going to teach in October, so next month. By the way, I highly, highly recommend that you guys be there. And I don't recommend you listen to the recording. I do recommend you attend it live with Joey and I. I promise you it is worth the price of admission. I don't say that about many things, but I very much recommend that you be there for that. Okay. Think of KD&A as tracking everything in the past, right? It's a way for you to see what you've been doing, for me to see what you've been doing, for us to kind of see along the way what you've been doing up to this point.
Sorry, what day in October are you going to be doing?
It is not formally scheduled yet.
Okay. Second week, maybe.
I think towards the end of October.
Okay, good.
It'll definitely, and I will definitely let you guys know way ahead of time.
Sorry to interrupt.
Okay, no. Great question. I'm glad you interrupted me for that. I missed out saying that. So the KD&A is everything that we've been doing, and it tracks a lot more than what Command is geared to track as of yet. And then you've got your 4-in-1 that tracks the future. And then you've got the business plan that comes out of the business planning clinic. And by the way, you also have what's the 135, the goal setting, the CGI, the what's it called? GPS, the Keller Williams GPS, the 135 thing. There's so many ways of tracking your goals. But let me kind of break it down on what's important. The business plan is going to help you and part of that we're doing today, part of that we just did in the last 5 minutes, and you may have had some different numbers, by the way. Part of it, we're looking forward and we're seeing where do we want to go on the horizon. That is our business plan, and that's part of what we're doing here. That's what's going to determine the goalpost that's a year away. And we're always going to keep doing that and setting that goalpost a year away. It's also helpful at some point to sit down and figure out what are my 3-year and 5-year goals. But for right now, I wouldn't worry too much about that. The 4-in-1 is how we take that big goal a year away and break it down into manageable chunks that we can digest 1 week at a time. And that's what I want you guys to focus on week in, week out. And then every once a month, once a quarter, go back to the business plan and look at it and go back and kind of revisit and say, all right, am I still on goal? Am I still on track to hit this goal? Is that still where I want to hit for this year? Adjust accordingly, and then reflect that in your 4-in-1. That's all of that is forward-looking stuff. Command is going to help track some of the dollar amounts and those kind of things, and most of that is going to be tracked in the KD&A as far as like what did you actually do lead generating activity wise and all that. Eventually, Command is going to keep getting more and more robust, and we'll be able to track everything in Command. But it's not there yet. It's not even close to being there yet. We can't track everything we need to track in Command. Otherwise, I would drop KD&A. It just doesn't, it's not there yet. It doesn't track, it won't track open houses. It won't track, some personal care stuff, submitting your 4-in-1 to me. It just doesn't track a whole bunch of things. So there you go. That's kind of how they all work together. Any questions on that? I know it's a bit confusing. I wish I could make it simpler, but that's just the way it is. Okay, so Yvette or Amal or Duran, were any of you guys did any of it feel discouraging when we looked over those numbers? Was it did you feel like, oh my God, this is, how am I ever going to do this? Was there some of that at all?
Kind of.
Cool. First of all, I appreciate you sharing that with me. We got a safe place here for you to share things like that. It's, we all have our limiting beliefs, right? It happens. I have mine, My coach was telling me what my goals should be for my coaching program. And I was like, oh my God, are you kidding me? She's like, no, she's like, you can do that. Absolutely. So I have a coach too, and she pushes me and, and my coach's coach is Monica Reynolds, and her coach is Gary Keller. So there you go. So
your coach is Monica Reynolds? That's awesome.
My coach's coach is Monica Reynolds, yes.
Mm.
So the point of our conversation today is not to be discouraging. It's to equip you with the reality of how to succeed, right? no matter how big your goal, you can achieve it in the real estate business as long as you focus your time and efforts on the right business activities. All right, this is Ignite, and I want to stop here for a second. I want to tell you guys something. You guys are gonna be shocked when I say this, but even though you guys are new, I don't want you guys looking all around the office and thinking everybody has good habits, even if they're somewhat successful. There's a lot of people who have really, really bad habits in our office. It just is, right? And that's true for any real estate office, right? Not everyone is super focused about their time, right? And let's also face it, the models are not easy to adhere to, right? And we're just having trouble sticking to the lead generation model of time blocking and calendar. Beyond that, there's the budget model where you go through and create a budget for yourself and stick to percentages and all that kind of stuff. We haven't even gotten there yet, right? So what I'm saying is, don't look around the office and think like, oh, okay, well, these people only make 5 calls a day or something. You should be thinking like, the daily 10-4 of making 10 contacts a day, 10 note cards, that's a pretty good baseline. I will tell you, if I were in your shoes, I would probably recommend that as being a goal to adhere to. Day in, day out, come rain, come shine. January, February, March, September, October, November, all the months, including through December, where everyone takes the month off and shows up middle of January and is like, oh, hey, look, hey, what's up, you guys? How was the holiday, right? It's like hibernation for a bear. You know, don't look at everyone or not. The model is you should be lead generate. Now, some of you guys like Duran, I know you have a whole separate job that you're working, trying to transition stuff. So, but for everyone who can, the model is to lead generate 2 or 3 hours a day. Let me repeat, the model is the best practices. If Gary was in our group right now, he'd be saying, oh yeah, you guys should be lead generating 2 or 3 hours a day. And if you don't want to be doing that, you may want to choose a different career path, because that's really, or you may want to lower your goals. But if you want to achieve like doing 12 transactions a year, which by the way, if you start right now, I promise you there's no one on this call who can't achieve that for 2021, without a doubt, without a doubt. But if you want to achieve that, that's the kind of effort that's required. I mean, it's you know, every job has their parts that are good, that are not very fun. Even if you're an actor, you know, I tried my hand at that a while, and I was, you know, I did not like auditioning at all. Well, hey, if you don't like auditioning, you probably need to find a different career path, because you're going to spend a whole lot more time auditioning than you're going to spend acting for many, many years, most likely. Anyways, you get what I'm saying though, right? You're following along. That's the hard truth of like, hey, it takes, if you want to achieve $150,000 in whatever, 15 months, right? Starting today, ending end of January 21, ending 2021. That's typically what it would require, is 3 hours of solid lead generation a day, right? And even then, it's going to be some hard work. And even then, that doesn't mean your day ends at the 3 hours. That's the hard part of the day. And then the rest of the day is learning and doing marketing and putting together pieces and script practice, previewing properties, all that good stuff. All right, there's my rant. Back to Ignite. Any comments on that, by the way? All right. The 80-20 principle. So in the night, all right, let me tell you a little story here. They have me reading a story to you. In the 1940s, quality control manager, Dr. Joseph M. Juran, documented a life-changing universal principle that he called the vital few and trivial many. The idea was that a relatively small percentage of your efforts lead to the vast majority of your results. He attributed some of his findings to the statistical work of the Italian economist Vilfredo Pareto, who had observed that 80% of the wealth in his country was owned by 20% of the population. As fate would have it, that broadly embraced principle came to be known not as Juran's law, but as Pareto's principle. These days, we simply call it the 80-20 principle.
Whose law?
It's not known as Juran's law. It's Pareto's principle.
Oh, sounds like you're saying my name.
Oh, I'm sorry, Greg. These days we simply call it the 80-20 rule, or 80-20 principle. The idea that 20% of your actions lead to 80% of your results may be one of the most powerful principles you can apply to your life. It's about getting the most from your time and effort. It's about maximizing your results. It's about having focus, right? Focus. Does anyone know what we mean by big rocks when we talk about your schedule?
No.
Huh.
Lead generation.
Correct. That's what it's referring to directly.
That's
The story,
the 20%.
they have a thing here, but it's actually not, it's incorrect. The story behind this is that there was a common teaching that they used to be used in classrooms where people would take the old giant milk jugs. Anybody remember those big giant milk jugs that were like 3 feet high and big metal ones? And the professor would stand in front of his college classroom and he would get a bunch of big rocks and put them in this milk jug that was like, I don't know, 20 gallons or something. And when he was done, he would ask the classroom, he would say, hey, class, what do we think? Is this jug full or can we fit any more, right? He's holding another rock in his hand, but that rock's not going to fit in that jug anymore. It's about the rock, the tank is overflowing with big rocks. And the class would say, oh yeah, no. You can't, no, we're done. The tank is full. And he would say, aha. And then he would pull out this box of smaller rocks. And he would pour the smaller rocks in, and the rocks would all filter down into the milk jug until it would fill up with middle rocks, the smaller. And he'd be like, what do you think, class? Are we done yet? And the class by this time is like, I don't know. I'm guessing there's a trick here, right? And so he'd find even smaller rocks, and they would find the cracks between those. And he'd say, what about now? And the class would say, I don't know. And he'd say, no. And so he'd take some sand, and he would pour it in, and the sand would filter in between all of that. And then he said, what do you think now? Now is the jug full? And I say, yeah, I think it's pretty full. Say, and he takes some water and he would pour it in the jug, and the water would fill in between the cracks between all the sand granules at a tiny, tiny level, right? How we tie that to is when it comes to your schedule, it's before you start putting in all the things that don't matter, put in the things that matter and then work around those, right? So that's what we talk about when we talk about the big rocks. And in our case, another way to identify your 20% is to ask the question central to the one thing. Amal, can you read that question that is on the slide?
What is the one thing you can do right now? I'm sorry about the noise.
No problem.
What is the one thing you can do right now that would make everything else easier or unnecessary?
Absolutely. That's the focusing question from the book, The One Thing, right? While asking the question is simple, it can take some practice to dig down and find the best answer. Let's work through it together. So here's the slide of activities we see every day, right? This is what we've been going through. We see this every day we start Ignite. We know this is how successful agents spend their time and how you'll spend your time. Remember, everything on this list will have to be done. Right now, we're trying to identify what our 20% is. What action will give us the most and best results so that we can do everything else? Looking at these activities, which activity is successful agents? That's you, 20%, which Amal already answered, so we're ahead of schedule, right? That's right. It's the thing we do first thing every day. If you don't lead generate, you don't have a business. Here's the 4-in-1. At Keller Williams, we have a tool for tracking our big rocks and ensuring all activities tie back to our goals. It helps us focus. It's called the 4-in-1. Turn to page 7 in your participant guide, and you've got a sample 4-in-1 there. There is a digital copy of the 4-in-1 included in the Ignite toolkit, right? That we keep talking about how to reference that Ignite toolkit. So let's talk about how to use the 4-in-1. Identify one of the 5 rectangles from the Envision Your Big Life activity to focus on for this activity. While all the elements of their big life are important, suggest they select the one that is the most urgent or would make the other parts of their vision easier. For example, paying off student loan. Right? You guys got that from the earlier exercise? Now, it's possible that your big life vision will involve professional and personal goals. we're focusing on professional goals for this exercise, but personal goals are also equally important. If you're able to identify personal aspects of achieving your goals, you should add them along the way. What would you need to achieve to make this part of your big life possible? For example, how much do you need to make this year to survive, plus how much extra is needed to pay off student loan debts, right? So if your first big goal of what we're talking about right now is to pay off student loans, what do you need to make in order to do that? This will be the annual goal they put at the top of their 4-in-1, right? So in the top of your 4-in-1 there, you might have pay off a third of my student debt loans in the next 12 months. It's up to you to figure this out, but this is what I want you to figure out. And by the way, when you do these 4-in-1s and you put this together, please send me a copy. As your coach, I really want to see this because this is what I'm going to help you work towards. So it's real important that I take a look at this. And now look back at the Get Paid worksheet. What will doing the minimum SPARK goals get them what will doing the minimum SPARK goals get you materially closer to your goals? If you need to do more, how much more can you do? Based on the Get Paid worksheet, how much will you make this year sticking to the SPARK goals? Do you guys know what I'm referring to? I believe this is from a different module. I don't think it was this one over here, right? Those are the transaction goals. Yeah, that's from a different day. You guys already did that on a different day. I remember that. How much more do you need to reach your own goals? How many transactions will it take to reach the goal? We just did a quick little calculation that you probably need to do about 12 transactions next year if you want to clear 150, right? So if you want to clear $150,000, you're going to need to do about 12 transactions. So maybe the number of transactions you need to do in 2021 goes at the top of your 4-in-1 too, right? That's an annual goal. How many transactions do you do? That might go in there. How many closings do you need to do each month to reach those annual transactions? Now this item goes under monthly goals, right? So if we're doing 12 transactions, that means we do one a year, right? So I would do it where I would say maybe before here at the end of the year, I would want to do 1 or 2 transactions. And then I would put one a month every month next year from January through October and plan on being done and hitting my 12 from between now and the end of next year by October. That's called front loading, and we won't go into that right now. Now, on average, to get 20 transactions, or in our case, 12 transactions, you're going to need about double the amount of appointments. Sometimes more, sometimes less. I think it's safe to say you're going to need at least 24 appointments. How many appointments you need each week to meet your monthly goal? Now we're talking about weekly goals, right? In our world, if you're going to try to do 24 appointments, but now we're not just talking meet up with people for coffee. We're talking buyer consultations or listing appointments, right? You're probably going to need about 24, maybe even more in LA to achieve 12 transactions next year. So what I would be trying to achieve is trying to do 1 appointment every other week. That would be my goal for now. I would try to do 1 appointment every other week from now until the end of next year. And at some point when you start to achieve that more frequently, we'll get a better sense of your conversion rates, and then we'll have a better take on that. Now you know how many appointments you'll need every week to make your big life a reality, right? Because we kind of have that, right? So we need an appointment every other week to make that big life, that sheet with all the rectangles. If you did an appointment every other week, 24 appointments by the end of next year, that would probably make that life a reality. So keeping that in mind, what should the goal be of every lead generation call or conversation be? Get an appointment, right? Get an appointment as much as you can. Now, if you're making care calls and you're calling people you haven't spoken with in a long time, you don't want to try to get an appointment right off the bat. But yeah, the overarching goal as you start making calls and sending them postcards and sending them emails and everything else, over time, the goal is to get an appointment with each one of those calls. Give me 1 second here. Someone's asking me about the link. Okay, sorry about that. Yeah, that should be the goal, is get appointments. As you build out your skills and you create business momentum, right now, like you're like, of course I'm trying to.
How many appointments we should make every week?
I would say my goal, I would be trying to set 1 appointment a week. Now, really to stay on track to doing 12 transactions a year, you need to do about 1 every other week. But I would be aiming for 1 a week. That's what my goal would be, 1 a week. 1 appointment a week. And know that for now, you may miss your goal, you know, as often as you hit it. But I would, every Monday morning when I sat down at my desk, I would be thinking in my head, I want an appointment by the end of this week. I want to set a buyer appointment or a listing appointment by the end of this week. Sure, I'll do some leases. Sure, I'm going to talk to some people and stop by their house and give them a home evaluation. And sure, I'm going to make a lot of calls that don't do any of this stuff. But by the end of this week, 1 of those calls, 1 of those things is going to lead to a buyer or listing appointment. Which, by the way, a lot of people are really big on. Oh well, I don't need to make phone calls because I'm just going to do lots of social media. I'm going to do lots of postcards and emails. Let me ask you something. I've been in this business 10 years. Anyone want to take a guess? How many listing appointments have I ever set from someone responding to me through social media and saying, oh my God, I didn't realize you're a realtor. Can we set an appointment for you to list my property?
None.
0?
0 appointments in 10 years. In 10 years, it's never happened. I have set 1 buyer appointment that way. 1 buyer appointment in 10 years. 0 listing appointments in 10 years. And I have done a ton of internet marketing, of email marketing. I mean, galore, just a barrage of marketing. And I've never once, it's not going to happen. It's just not how it works. It's just not how it works typically. On rare occasions, someone will call you back and then you start a conversation. And then usually like 1 or 2 phone calls later, you might set an appointment. But it's super rare for them to call you. It just doesn't, it's just not how it works.
So most your appointments, your buyers
come from calls, you know. That's the nature of our business. You think like, oh, I'm so charismatic, everyone's going to start calling me all the time. It's not like that. Don't get me wrong, marketing has a purpose, but it's all about the outbound stuff. If you're a realtor, 90% of your contacts with people are going to come from you calling them, not them calling you. Just get used to it. People are going to be like, oh yeah, let's talk in a couple of weeks. That means you're going to have to call them. Even if they say, oh yeah, I'll call you back, that 9 out of times means they say they're going to call you back, but you're going to be the one following up with them. So just let's get past that right now. All right. So here's the reality. The day-to-day life of successful real estate agents is very repetitive. It is very repetitive. They know that top agents know that their routine produces the results they need to live the life they want. Often that's enough to make them love the grind. And it is a grind. I'm not going to lie to you. There is part of this business that is a grind. Much like I don't care what career you point me at, there's going to be part of it that is going to be a grind. And it's going to take repetitive practice, repetitive actions day in, day out, some of which gets boring. And you have to find ways to keep yourself engaged and entertained and motivated. There are many of you in this Zoom room here who, once you start seeing your work pay off, you're going to love the grind. You're going to enjoy honing your systems and skills to compete at the highest level. There are others of you in this Zoom room who will never love the grind. That's okay. That doesn't mean you're doomed to fail. Even those of you who find you love it will have days when you need more of a push to motivate yourself. That's part of what the morning call is all about. That's part of what a lot of it is about. I want to give you something for those times. I'm going to ask you to do something that may feel silly at first, but is a crucial part of building careers worth having, businesses worth owning, and lives worth living. Okay, so now it's time to turn to page. I want you to affirm your big life. I want you to turn to page 8 in your participant guide. We're going to create for ourselves a little ritual. Think back to your big life and the goals you've set for yourself. Think about one of those people or causes that you named as something you care deeply about. Does everybody here have something they care deeply about on their big life sheet on page 3?
Yes.
All right, all right. I want you to use that person or thing you care about to create an affirmation. You're going to say the affirmation aloud whenever you begin a new task. The key to creating a powerful affirmation is to be specific. Tie the activity you are doing to the greater goal and remind yourself why your work matters. An example is provided below. Okay, let's say part of your big life is ensuring your mom is well cared for as she ages. And let's say that one way you want to be able to do that is to help her pay off her house. I want you to write an affirmation that you will say out loud, and this is what Gary's saying here, before every call you make as you lead generate. For example, you could say, I am making this call to provide for my mom by paying off her house because she provided for me and I want to show her I appreciate her. Or let's say you want to support a charity. You could say, I'm making this call to support the Ronald McDonald House by paying for families to stay there because I want to reduce the suffering of families with sick children. Do you feel the difference between making calls for 3 hours a day because you have to and making calls for 3 hours a day because you want to take something off the plate of a family dealing with a catastrophic illness? Right? Or because you want your mother to feel loved and safe? How differently will that call go if you remind yourself of that? And by the way, I am really big on mindset stuff. It's been a slow metamorphosis for me over the course of 10 years. When I started and my Ignite instructor said something like this in my Ignite class, I literally threw up in my mouth a little bit and it was like, oh, you got to, what kumbaya craziness have I stepped into here? I thought this was a sales class. Can we get past the hoity-toity stuff? I just, I want to make calls and I want to make money. Along the way, I have softened little by little, and now I am a big fan of affirmations and all sorts of stuff to work on my mindset. In fact, I will tell you, I am more and my biggest focus with all of you who are in coaching is honestly more about your mindset than anything else. That's the thing I care about more than anything else, because I know if your mind is in the right place, sky's the limit and you'll succeed. No doubt about it. Anybody want to volunteer an affirmation? You don't need to, but if you want to, I invite you to.
You mean just like what we want to do or like who we're doing it for?
Yeah, for example, I'm making this like before every call during while you're prospecting, you find yourself getting bored. You can say something before every call. For example, this call right here, I am bored. Like I've literally had days where I say stuff like this, like I am bored out of my mind, but you know what? I'm making this call today because my kid wants to go to Disneyland and this call is going to pay for that. Literally, I mean, that kind of stuff. You can say that to yourself all day long and it'll get you through. It could be like, I mean, it could be something noble. Don't tell anybody, but it could be like super selfish too. It could be like, I'm making this call because I want a Porsche 911 convertible, cabriolet, a C2 cab, and there you go. That's my goal for this phone call. But don't tell
That was
anybody.
a very specific Porsche.
The next one will be for the Ronald McDonald's house. But this one's for my Porsche. No, I'm serious. Yeah. By the way, I used to have a Porsche exactly like that, and that was long story. We'll get fun for another day. But you get what I'm saying? It doesn't have to be noble. It can be like just whatever's gonna fuel you to make the call. Anybody want to share theirs?
You got to give me a second. Let me think of it.
A moment. We'll stay here for a moment because I love this. And I love what Gary's talking about here about the grind, what Ignite is teaching here, because it's really important that you guys get to know that. And when I tell you a lot of agents in our office have bad habits, I am not kidding you. It is, even people who are doing a fair amount of business, if they did what this is teaching, oh my God. You look at the people who do this kind of stuff, the red team, if you're on the red team, you will be lead generating every morning. They do it together or you're not on the red team anymore. Tiffany Chin, that's what her and Rachel do every morning. Who else? I mean, there's several people who really do stick to the model and they produce phenomenal results from it. And when you can stop fighting that and start realizing that it's not the shiny object. I promise you, it is not the Facebook ad that's going to get you to your next goal. It's grinding it out and making those calls. Okay, any affirmations you guys want to share that's going to power you, that's going to motivate you to make the next call?
I'm making this call so I don't ever have to struggle again. I don't know, there's like so many different things. I mean, like just the struggle period, whether it's, I don't ever want to have to borrow money unless it's for a mortgage.
Yeah. Oh my God, I love that one.
There's so many, so I can't pinpoint which one.
So I'm a big fan of, I'm gonna step aside for a second here. I'm a big fan of your workspace reflecting some of these things that matter to you, right? Your physical workspace, wherever that may be, wherever you're doing your calls from. Not always possible. Some people have to make their calls from a coffee shop or their car or whatever. So sometimes you can't, you got to roll with it. But if you have a space that you can personalize and make your own, I'm a big fan of having some stuff, put some pictures up of things that motivate you. You guys know I went to Tahoe like a month ago. I had a picture of Tahoe up literally right on the other side of my monitor up for about a year, and it kept not happening for various reasons. And I kept it up there, and that powered me through many a day, just having that up there. Pictures of your kids, pictures of these affirmations. I'm making today's call because of this. And you could have 5 different ones listed in a row, and you can pick one on any given day where you're feeling unmotivated and saying, that's the one for today. And you just, as a mantra between every phone call, today I'm doing it because of this. Part of why I'm going to start getting some Starbucks cards in 11:30 when we're done. For those of you who can lead generate 9:30 to 11:30. At 11:30, we're going to report back our numbers and be like, hey, today I did this. And we're going to give out some Starbucks cards. I want to do some more stuff like that for coaching. You know how I did that thing about the gold, the silver, and the bronze? I'm going to start attaching some mild prizes. Don't get too crazy. No one's going to win a car, but some prizes just to keep us all going, to keep it all fun and motivating, right? Any others? Any other comments on the topic? Duran, do you want to read this right here? Or can you read it? I don't know if you're available.
Yeah. Accountable people achieve results others can only dream of.
Love that. I love that. Goals without accountability are just wishes. We're more likely to do what we've said we're going to do if we know we must answer to someone. All of you guys are in coaching. Here's what I invite you to do. That's part of why I'm saying, if you don't have a 4-in-1 complete, schedule a one-on-one with me. Let's do that together. Or if you want to do it and share it with me, schedule a one-on-one with me. I want to know what your 4-in-1 is. What is your goal for next year? And it can't just be like, I want to be a better person, right? We want goals that are measurable, or else how are we going to know if we achieve it? We want them to be achievable, right? We want smart goals, right? And that's part of the group, is like in those small groups of, we're going to report our numbers, and you're going to be able to tell people like, hey, my goal for next week is I'm doing this, and then come back the next week and say I did it. That is powerful. And when you do that several weeks in a row, you're going to start feeling empowered from saying you were going to do something and then going out and doing it, right? So maybe it's like, I know it's hard, but I'm going to make I'm going to make 50 contacts this week. That's 10 a day. That's what Ignite is prescribing. And, you know, I used to do 36 calls a day. Now mine were a little different, but, you know, 10 is totally doable. It's going to take you, you know, 2.5 hours roughly to do that if you're calling your database, but you'll keep learning how to do better and better at it. So it's going to get easier the more you do it. Everybody following me on that? So that's part of why during those group calls, I ask everybody, like, what was your goal for this week? So you should know that. You should know that. You should be reading it off of your 4-in-1 saying, my goal was to do this, and this is what I did. Maybe you fall short. Maybe you overachieve. Maybe you hit it on the nose. It's all good, but that accountability loop will give you some additional motivation and will also help you have a good vision on what's going on in your business at all times, which is what we want. Alrighty. Okay, you guys have stuck with me through a lot of talking, a lot of listening, a lot of contributing, which I appreciate. I really do appreciate all your hard work today. I hope that this has helped you feel empowered towards reaching that 2021 goal, which I cannot wait to hear about it. I want to know what your 2021 goals are. So please share that with me. I really want to know. And I hope you're feeling empowered to reach those goals and to live that big life we were describing. The life that you can make, well, let me put it this way, you can make a whole lot of money in real estate. And by the way, I used to think the people who made it were very charismatic or very smart. And I will tell you, the biggest producers I have known were neither. they were neither very like particularly, you know, attractive, salesy type people, nor were they particularly rocket scientists. I promise you. You know, God, I have like numerous people I'm thinking of in my head who don't fit that particular description. Sure, you know, there's nothing wrong with that, but that's not, the success is more attributable to, did they do their 3 hours of lead generation every day? I mean, the activities that we started up the day off with, if you do that on a daily basis, you'll get there, even though the first 6 months can feel like you're walking across a desert. Okay, enough from me. It is time to turn it over to you guys. What were some, okay, so turn to page 9. Let me share this back. Sorry about that. Turn to page 9, and it says this here. The goal of our time together is to help you think, feel, act, and use what you've learned to ignite your passion and to help you achieve your big why. So you guys should be writing down your ahas for each of the categories, right? So on here, on your sheet, was there anything that we covered today that changed your thinking? Did you think something differently did you kind of see something a little differently based on what we were all talking about? Did you feel differently about something? Did you have a feeling about something that came up?
My aha is that to determine every day before I do my lead generation to do my commitment, or why am I doing this? My one thing motivation.
Yeah, your affirmation. I love that.
The affirmation.
That's wonderful. If that's the one thing you took from there, that's one of the most powerful things you can take away from all of Ignite, honestly. We also want to talk about how will your behaviors be different going forward? What actions do you want to change based on what we talked about today, if any? What tools, models, or systems will you definitely use? How will they make you accountable? Does anyone else want to talk to any of these things?
I think it motivated me when you said, you know, even though it feels like we're walking through a desert for the first 6 months, that, you know, if we keep doing our work and doing what we're supposed to do, that we'll eventually get there.
I love that. I'm going to tell you guys a secret.
That's awesome.
So in my Keller Williams office in Charleston, South Carolina, in year 3, I was like an overnight sensation, and I was in the top 5% of my market. I got the Realtor of Distinction Award. I don't even think they have that here, but it's like everyone thinks it's a big deal or whatever. And everyone was like, "Oh my God, this guy came out of nowhere! Like, what the hell is going on?" Like, you know, all like it kind of happened pretty quickly when everyone started to notice, right? Because all of a sudden I started getting some more, just I was like, whoa. And I had people who I used to go to for advice were coming by my office asking me for advice. So I kind of knew I was onto something. But here's what I want you guys to know. It took me 9 months from the day that I really started focusing until I got my first buyer closing. Now, granted, it was 2010. It was a miserable time, but you know, it wasn't like I mean, I was trying really hard. So that was brutal, and I almost left the industry. Like I almost ran out of money, quite frankly. And I had a family. We're all living off of one commission income. And then year 2, I made some progress, but it wasn't like one thing. It was like I started contacting expireds. I changed my marketing. I changed my schedule. You know, and I kept just adding pieces, right? A little bit here, a little bit there. And year 2 was like really big growth, but no one noticed. But I went from doing like 6 transactions or something. I remember this. I went from losing $60,000 in my first year of real estate to making $60,000 in my second year. And that was huge. And then the next year, like I made 212. And then the next year is like, that's when it rained. That was fun. I missed those days. But just, you know, so hang in there. The work feels crazy. It feels crazy the first 6 months. And you'll have these situations, you're just like, oh my, like, you just feel like, what the hell? Like, what am I doing? And just hang in there. Because I promise you, if you do the work, trust me that I believe in you. And I promise you, if you're unclear, talk to me and say, hey, I am feeling like I'm not getting there. Have that conversation with me, because we'll go over, what are you doing? Oh, if you're doing this, this, and this, I'm not worried in the slightest. I can promise you that. If you're doing, we'll have that conversation. I'll say, hey, if you're nervous about, like, I don't think I'm getting to where I go, I'm getting fast enough. I'll be like, okay, let's, you know, I think I'm off track or whatever. Maybe you are. Let's take a look. We'll go over certain things, and we'll quickly identify if something needs to change. You have to go, Amal. Great to have you, Amal. Wonderful to have you in class. Any last ahas or anything from you, Duran, or Yvette, or should we wrap it up? All right, that was a whole lot of fun. I will see both of you guys soon on Wednesday at 2 o'clock. Yeah, I'll see you guys then. You guys know where to find me in the meantime.
Okay, thank you.
All right, bye, you guys.
Bye.